and welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. In this session of the top topics of the week, we'll delve into 5 most important topics from the Hindu and the Indian Express. So let's explore each topic in depth so that you're well informed and prepared for the examination. So let's kick off with the first topic.
So yes, this is the first article that we'll be discussing, okay. So this article discusses about scuttling people's right to information. As I already told you, in this particular article, we will be discussing certain very important concepts, okay. So what are the important concepts? First, we'll understand what is right to information. In the next one, we'll actually read about or discuss about the philosophy behind this particular right to information. What are the international conventions with respect to this particular right to information, and with respect to that of the Indian Constitution, from which provision do we actually draw it from, whether it is Article 19 clause 1 clause A, which talks about freedom of speech and expression, or whether it is Article 21 right to life with dignity. So this is what we'll be discussing in this. And moving forward, we'll be discussing about various Supreme Court judgments as well as the RTI Act of 2005, its amendment in 2019, and also finally we'll discuss about what are the challenges that actually face this particular legislation in India. Okay, so what are the hurdles that the government actually faces in implementing the same. So this is what we'll be discussing in this particular article. Now moving forward, yeah. So here, as I already told you, we'll be discussing about right to information, the RTI Act of 2005, the Amendment Act, the Official Secrets Act. That is, before the RTI Act of 2005 was implemented, we had Official Secrets Act, okay, which actually enables or holds the government accountability and transparency. So we'll be discussing about that, as well as fundamental rights, as Article 19 and 21 are fundamental rights. And finally, if we see the relevance or the syllabus from which this particular article can be taken is from polity of the prelim section, and for the mains perspective it is under GS paper 2, that is quasi judicial bodies, transparency and accountability. So here you need to also know about the Information Commission as well as the criteria for a particular person to be elected as the Information Commissioner as well as the subordinates, okay. So this is what we'll be discussing here. So any topic that we actually pick up for discussion definitely is based on a previous year question, okay. So you have this particular topic of Representation of People's Act in your syllabus, okay. So this is what it is. There is a view that the Official Secrets Act is an obstacle to the implementation of the RTI Act. Do you agree with this view? Discuss, okay. So this has been a question that was asked in the mains examination in 2019. Now moving forward, let us understand what the article is discussing about. So here it says that the article discusses the challenges and the concerns that are surrounding the weakening of the Right to Information Act, okay. So this particular act was actually implemented in order to hold the government accountable, okay, in order to make sure that the activities or the functions performed by the government is actually transparent to the general public. In case the general public feels that there is opaqueness in the policy implementation and the functioning, what happens under this RTI, they can question as to what are the funds allocated, how it has been allocated, etc. And however, it actually comes with reservations as in it has certain exemptions. In that case, we will look into whom all are the parties or the stakeholders onto whom this RTI actually applies, who are exempted from it, and what are the 2019 amendments that were brought here. So let us quickly get into understanding what is this particular news is discussing. So here if you see this particular piece of act, that is the RTI Act, has been a significant tool for promoting transparency as well as accountability in governance. This all of us know, right? Now moving forward, While RTI Act has played a very, very significant and successful role in exposing, the cases of corruption, and it has also given access to critical information, what happens? It is currently facing a number of challenges with respect to administrative delays. The recent amendment that was actually brought, that is the 2019 amendment that was brought. What is an amendment? Any kind of change in the already existing provisions, okay? That is called amendment. So the 2019 amendment that was brought, it actually gave more power to the central government in designing the salary, the allowances, the tenure of the information commissioners, okay? So that actually was seen as, taking away of the autonomy of this particular body. So that is what it is. So there were recent amendments and difficulties faced by those who are implementing it, okay? Now moving forward, let us see what do you mean by right to information. See, in our discussion, what we'll generally do is, first let us understand the entire topic in detail and then quickly run through whatever is written over here. Otherwise, if you directly focus on what is on the board, no, your your focus or the concentration will be diverted. You'll be looking more into the content than listening to what we are, what I am saying. So first I told you what is right to information, what is the Right to Information Act. So first let us discuss what is this particular concept of right to information. This is nothing but simple. In layman's term, it grants the citizens the ability to access any kind of information pertaining to the functioning of the government. So this actually empowers the citizens as active participants in a democracy, okay, rather than just being passive subjects and voting a particular party to power. It makes sure that the citizens feel contented as active participants in the democracy. So that is what is called as right to information. This actually ensures that there is open access to the working of the government's different bodies or the branches, that you say the legislature, the executive, as well as the judicial branches. And philosophically, if you see the philosophical foundation of this right to information, this traces back to Aristotle. What did Aristotle believe? So this actually becomes when important when you write your ethics, when you write your essay, and when you write your GS2, that is governance paper, okay? So what did Aristotle actually say? He believed that liberty and equality are the cornerstones of a democracy, and these cornerstones of democracy can be achieved only when citizens have unrestricted access to, about how the government operates. So this is how the philosophy of right to information actually started. And so the availability of information plays a critical role in shaping an individual's personality, political, social identity, as well as in order to be aware of what are all the economic opportunities which is actually present, okay? So this is what is right to information. Now let us see what is the kind of traction or the recognition that this particular right to information has in the international law. Firstly, you see the United Nations recognition is that the UN has recognized this right since 1946, okay, even before India gained its independence, declaring that freedom of information is a fundamental human right. So here United Nations has said that it is a fundamental human right, and it is actually central to all the other freedoms that the United Nations upholds. There's nothing to understand more on this. You just need to know from where this actually evolved as a philosophy and what is the international recognition. Moving on, as per the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, very, very important, as per the provision, the right to information actually became legally binding right through its inclusion in Article 19 of this International Covenant of Civil as well as Political Rights. So these are some of the legislations that you must be aware of while quoting this. Now, with respect to the Indian Constitution, whether this particular right to information, see, there are questions like this, whether right to vote is a constitutional right or not, whether it is a legal right or not, right to property, whether it is a fundamental right or not. And then here similarly, right to information, whether it is directly derived from one of the constitutional provisions or not, can be a possible question in your examination for your prelims, okay? So here you need to know, right to information is not explicitly mentioned anywhere in the Constitution. However, the Supreme Court has actually drawn inferences from Article 19 Clause 1, which is a fundamental right that actually upholds the freedom of speech and expression. And moving on from Article 21, it has actually inferred that right to information is a part of right to living with dignity. Okay. So this is what it is, and there have been a lot of Supreme Court judgments where, see, every topic in your polity has to be substantiated with best examples, cases, case laws, etc. Okay. So here, with respect to RTI Act, you just have to note it down that these are the different cases. Even if you don't remember the recent cases, you can quote these cases, okay, which will fetch you or give you an edge over the other aspirants. So over here, State of UP versus Raj Narayan 1975, where the Supreme Court held the right is actually implicit in the right to freedom of speech and expression that is mentioned under Article 19 of the Constitution. And again, in SP Gupta versus President of India 1982, the Supreme Court actually asserted that the right of the people to know about the public act and details of every transaction undertaken by the public functionary, okay, that is the government. And moving on, it said that People's Union, that is PUCL, People's Union for the Civil Liberties versus the Union of India case, the Supreme Court elevated the status of right to information to a human right, and it actually linked to Article 21 of the Constitution. So these are the various case laws that is associated with this particular right to information. Now moving on to understand what is this Right to Information Act of 2005, okay. So the right to information is derived from, we know, the fundamental right, that is Article 19, freedom of speech and expression. This emphasizes that without access to the information, on how it actually functions, on how the government functions and how the other public institution functions, the citizens cannot form an informed opinion, and this particular act was amended in 2019. Now it is important to understand how different were the provisions in 2019 from the provisions that were there in 2005 with respect to tenure, with respect to the salary, the allowance, as well as the pension. Okay, so now let us move forward in understanding that quickly. So if you see here, so if you see here, in 2005, the 2005 Act, here the Chief Information Commissioner and the Information Commissioners at central and the state levels will actually serve for a period of 5 years. But according to the 2019 bill, this particular tenure of 5 years will be decided by the central government. Now moving on, with respect to that of the salary, the 2005 Act actually said that at the central level, the salary of the Chief Information Commissioner and Information Commissioners will be equivalent to the salary of Chief Election Commissioner and the Election Commissioners respectively. That is what they say is Information Commissioners and Chief Information Commissioners will withdraw or will draw an equal salary such as the Election Commissioners in India, okay. At the state level, it will be equivalent salary of the Election Commissioners and Chief Secretary respectively. Whereas the 2019 bill says all the salaries, all the allowances as well as the other terms and conditions of service will again be determined by the central government, which again actually reduced the autonomy of this particular Information Commission, okay. So here your takeaway is to understand about the Information Commission, why it was formed, what are the objectives, whether it's a constitutional body or a quasi-judicial body, etc. Now moving forward, here we actually saw with respect to tenure, here we saw with respect to that of the salary. Now moving on, we will see with respect to that of deductions, okay. At the time of appointment, the CIC, that is the Chief Information Commissioner, and ICs at both the central and the state levels are receiving pension or any other retirement benefits for the previous government service, their salaries will actually be reduced by an amount equal to that of the pension, okay. So this actually talks about the deductions that is done. And the previous government service actually includes the central government, the state government, corporation established under a central or state law, or a company that is actually owned or controlled by central or state government. So here once again what are they saying is, at the time of appointment, if for example I am the Chief Election Commissioner, at the time of appointment, whether I am a central election, Information Commissioner or a state information commissioner, what happens if I am receiving any kind of pension from an already performing job? Then what happens? What happens is their salaries will be reduced by an amount. For example, if I was a previous government servant and if I'm an ex-bureaucrat and if I'm actually receiving 50,000 as my pension, okay, and now if I'm appointed as the chief election commissioner, whether at the state or at the central level, so here what happens, my salary will be equivalent to the previously drawn pension, that is 50,000 rupees. That's what they are saying. This was according to the 2005 act, but the amendment actually removes all these provisions. Okay, so these are the differences in the provisions between the 2019 as well as the 2005 act. Now we will quickly understand the act and the provisions of the RTI act. Here the RTI act and its rules, they define the format for requesting information. Okay, the rules actually says that what is the format, whether you need to give it in an undertaking, whether you need to fill a form, etc. And it also tells the time frame within which the information must be provided, also the method for delivering the information, the fee which is actually associated with applying, and also what are the exemptions for certain types of information that will not be disclosed. So these are the rules that are actually stated by the RTI. Next, these are the provisions, specific provisions like section 4, section 6, section 7. You can actually use them as buzzwords, but not that important. We'll just go through what does section 4 says. It says that there have to be public authorities to maintain their records properly, the first one, and they have to keep it indexed in order to facilitate the right to information. Next one, section 6, it allows any person seeking information under the act, they have to make a written request, whom the written request actually has to be sent to, either to the central or the state public information officer, and there they have to actually write in detail what are the specifics or the details of the information that is required, whether I need to know the salary of some person, whether I need to know what are the funds allocated for a specific scheme, or I need to know the method of selection of a particular candidate into bureaucracy. Whatever it is, I need to specify the details. Next one, section 7 obligates the public information officer to provide the information, or he can reject the request for reasons specified under section 8 and 9, because this actually includes national security, defense, etc. In those cases it cannot be given to the citizen. Okay, and it has to be done within 30 days of receiving the request. And section 19 actually says, if a person does not receive a decision within 30 days or is dissatisfied with the decision, then what happens? The person can further appeal to the senior officer within the same public authority. So these are the different provisions of the RTI. So who are all, or what are the stakeholders or the entities that are exempted from the RTI Act? Is that very, very important. Any information that is related to defense, national security, or personal details of a particular person, that is exempted from the disclosure. And before the RTI Act was enacted, the disclosure of the information in India was actually limited, or it was overseen by the Official Secrets Act and the other specific laws. And here the RTI Act has actually relaxed many of these restrictions, thereby enhancing more transparency as well as accountability. Now moving forward, who all are covered under RTI? Whether it includes the entire citizen of India. So here it applies throughout India. Okay, it covers all the bodies. Very important. It can be asked as an one-liner in your MCQ also. It covers all the bodies established under the Constitution, any law or government notification, including that of the non-governmental organizations that are owned, controlled, and substantially financed by the government. Any direct or indirectly controlled entity by the government, they are entitled to this particular RTI. And also all the private bodies that are owned, controlled, or substantially financed by the government, they are also directly covered under the provisions of the RTI Act. Okay. Now let us quickly see what are the challenges facing this particular RTI and finish this topic off. First one, definitely there are actually vacancy in the number of posts. Okay, So the government has been undermining the RTI Act because there has been delay in the appointing of the information commissioners. For example, if you see, 7 out of 29 information commissions have been inactive or defunct, or they have not been functional at all. This includes the state information commissions of Jharkhand, Telangana as well as Tripura. And also there have been a number of backlogs of cases. For example, 1 lakh pending cases in Maharashtra. And even if you see, the Central Information Commission still has 8 out of 11 posts vacant, and this further delays the resolution of the cases quickly. So now this is simple, right? So vacant post as well as crumbling commitment. Next one, lack of accountability and enforcement. So even with respect to that of penalties that have been imposed by the RTI, that has also been done away with, even if they are given warrants. So here there has been lack of penalty imposed on the violations of the RTI Act. So if you see, 95% of the cases where the penalties could be imposed did not see any kind of action. So there is also non-compliance of this particular act. So this what happens, this kind of lack of accountability, this promotes a culture of impunity where there are more liberties which are actually taken in implementation of the act. So it dilutes the effectiveness of the act is what this particular article says. Next one, there have been regressive amendments. That is, one such was the 2019 amendments which actually increased the autonomy or increased the power of the central government, whereas it actually decreased the autonomy of the Central Information Commission itself. The next one is Digital Personal Data Protection Act. This further amended the RTI Act by expanding Section 8 Clause 1 Subclause J to exempt all the personal information. It said that all personal information is actually not subjected to right to information. So this limited the scope of the implementation of RTI. So this is what the author says. Okay. Now moving forward. Previously, personal information could be exempted only. I told you, right? Personal information under 2005 Act was exempted only when it actually was something related to the national security, defense purposes, etc. But what happened? The amendment, that is the DP, the Data Protection Act, it exempted the personal information from the purview or for the public purview. Okay, so here previously the personal information could. Yeah, previously the personal information could only be exempted if it had no relation to the public activity or interest, or if it caused unwarranted invasion of privacy, and the new amendment removed these checks and balances, thereby diluting the rights of the citizens in knowing the personal information of the persona. Okay, now moving forward, threats and violence against RTI activists. Okay, for example, if there are just a second. Okay, so moving forward, the next one is threats and violence against RTI activists. You can actually see any kind of RTI activists who actually, file a petition against a particular person because they have been neglected the right to information with respect to that of particular appointment, the fund allocation, etc. What happened is that according to the Transparency International, nearly 100 people have been killed, okay, for using this RTI Act, and it has reported that thousands have been assaulted also. They are also been, threatened, and they are, they face the implications of charging false cases on them, etc. Next one, if you see, the Whistleblowers Protection Act, this was actually passed in 2014. What was the mandate was that the person, that is a whistleblower, can actually expose the corruption, and this particular act was brought in order to safeguard the people who actually whistleblow, okay, who bring all these corruption as well as antisocial activities outside. What happened was, this particular act or legislation remains non-functional as the government has failed to operationalize it, and this lack of protection has made it dangerous for activists and ordinary citizens in order to exercise their right to information. So these are all very normal points. And the last one is, it actually has a severe implication on the democracy. So what is a democracy? for the proper functioning of the democracy, the citizens actually have to be informed about the policy regulations of the government. When that doesn't take place through the malfunctioning or the lack of implementation of the RTI Act, what happens? It actually results in or a severe impact on the democracy. Here you see estimated 6 million RTI applications actually filed annually, and it is there to ensure the transparency, right? It is a critical tool for ensuring that. However, there has been gradual erosion of the rights through administrative neglect. There has been amendments that are made for the convenience of the government. There has been violent reprisals, that is there is a huge implications and violence that is caused against the people who actually raise their voice, etc. So an informed citizenry, that is all of us, have to be informed, and this is a prerequisite for democracy, and if that is not so, it actually undermines the proper functioning. So that is what is with the case of RTI as well. This is what the article actually talks about, and towards the conclusion you can actually bring about a very neutral conclusion, which actually says addressing the issues of administrative delays, also the issues of ensuring adequate as well as timely appointments, and then making proper as well as for the welfare of the people, you need to bring about amendments and not for the convenience of the government. So all that has to be taken care of, and these are the steps in order to preserve the impact that this particular law can bring towards establishing the accountability as well as transparency of the government, because you actually have this term in your syllabus, accountability and transparency. So that can be with respect to your RTI as well. So this completes your particular discussion on right to information. So from here, your takeaway is to understand about the role of the Chief Information Commissioner, their mode of appointment, their salary, allowances, pension, tenure, etc. has to be discussed. And also you need to understand about the Information Commission as well as what kind of a body is it, whether it is a statutory body or whether it is a constitutional body, whether it is a quasi-judicial body in terms of resolution of disputes, etc. has to be understood with this particular topic. So here we have actually come to the conclusion of this particular mains topic. Now let us see if there are any question. Yeah, Varun Raj has asked, hello ma'am, do we need to remember all these sections under RTI? No, all these sections are actually not important, Varun, to remember for under the RTI. You just need to know the broader objective of this particular of this particular act. Why this legislation was brought? It was actually brought to ensure transparency, accountability, and in order to ensure that what are the provisions that it actually provides. Okay, you just can faintly remember. Even in case you do not remember, you can write the RTI Act of 2005. It actually provides for a public authority has to solve all this within 30 days. If not, they can appeal to the higher authority in that particular office, etc. So this is how you need to approach this particular topic.
AQI remains poor, GRAP Stage 1 kicks in. AQI remains poor, GRAP Stage 1 kicks in. Again, this is regarding the air quality index. We'll be discussing the air quality index and what is graded action plan. All these things we'll be discussing here. So this is regarding the pollution which is happening in the Delhi regarding after this Dasara celebration. So from the prelims point of view, these terms are very much important. From the mains point of view, it is coming under the environmental pollution and degradation area in the UPSC syllabus. Okay. Again, before itself questions like this were asked. You can see here it was regarding the NGT. Here also many organizations are coming. So here it is regarding the NGT. How is NGT different from the Central Pollution Control Board? So you have to, two statements are given. You have to identify which all are correct. Okay. So like that way, question can be asked regarding the organizations which I am about to tell also. Okay. So what is the context? Air quality index in Delhi dropped following the Dasara celebration, leading to invocation of stage 1 of targeted response action plan. You know, right, during Dasara and all, we'll be burning these effigies, even some people they do the firecrackers. So like that, many things are there. Even the population, people will be going for celebrations, vehicles, all these things. So pollution will be high during this festivity times, especially during Diwali as well as Dasara. Okay, so followed by that, the air quality index has dropped, and they have invoked the stage 1 of graded response action plan. Okay, now let's start with what air quality index. What is the air quality index? Sometimes known as NAQI or AQI, air quality index. So this is a measure in which the government can tell us that how much polluted is the air, or maybe what is the quality. Sometimes it won't be polluted. So what is the quality of the air to public? So that the government will be informing through this one. Okay. So who is behind this? Or maybe I'll just give you an example. For example, earthquake. You know, right? Richter scale in news and all we used to hear, right? Richter scale, it was 7 in Richter scale, 6 in Richter scale, 10 in Richter scale. So like that. Like that way, here also they'll be giving a number. They'll be giving a number indicating that this is the quality of the air. Okay. So that's actually a way of communication between the government or who are the authorities with the public. Okay, so who is behind this? It is calculated by the Central Pollution Control Board and the State Pollution Control Board in collaboration with Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology and Indian Meteorological Department. So in the ground level, scientists will be there. Even we have high advanced equipments will be there. And sometimes if you go to this some areas and all, there will be monitors will be there indicating what is the air quality of that particular day. So that will be there. So the groundwork will be done by these teams, and they will be calculating the National Air Quality Index, and they will be showing it. Okay, so the scale is ranging from 0 to 500. Scale is ranging from 0 to 100. So 0 means what? 0 means the air is good. The quality of the air is good. 500 means it is worse. 500 means it is worse. So basically this is a warning of whether you will be getting a health hazard. If you are going out in this 500, definitely you will be getting some issue. Okay, so that's it. So based on this ranges, air quality index will be, sorry, your health impact will also be vary. Okay. Alright, so on what basis they are actually calculating this? Air quality index takes into account 8 major pollutants: particulate matter PM10 and PM2.5, carbon monoxide, ozone, nitrogen, sulfur dioxide, ammonia and lead. So these are the 8 major pollutants. These are the 8 major pollutants who will become 8 major pollutants which we will be considering. Okay, so one more thing is that to calculate the AQI, data from at least 3 pollutants is required. In this 3, one should be PM10, another one should be PM2.5. One should be PM10, another one should be PM2.5. It's not like just 3 only, but still at least 3 should be there. So along with this, maybe 1 or maybe more are there, and if their levels are very high, then based on that only this AQI is calculated. Okay, so now based on this AQI for the Delhi NCR region, the authorities have come up with a plan known as Graded Response Action Plan. Delhi is one of the most polluted places in India, most polluted cities in India. So that needs special plans for rectifying that. Okay, so this is known as GRAP, Graded Response Action Plan. It's a set of specific emergency measures designed to combat air pollution in the National Capital Region. Okay, so as of now it is specifically for the National Capital Region, the Delhi region only, and it was developed by Environmental Pollution Prevention and Control Authority (EPCA) and implemented by Commission for Air Quality Management. Earlier itself, there was a previous year question regarding NGT and CPCB. So like that way, these organizations are also important. Which all organizations are implementing this, that is also very much important. Okay. Alright, so GRAP is activated based on air quality index levels, which determine the severity of air pollution, enforced in stages. This is very important. It is enforced in stages to reduce the harmful effects of pollution in public health and environment. Now itself, I don't know if you remember the news, it is like GRAP stage 1. That was only, we have different stages are there. So in this is the stage 1 only. Stage 1 means not much severe, but still it has to be involved. Okay, for every stage some measures will be there. So these are the 4 stages. So stage 1 is from moderate to poor. Moderate to poor, it is stage 1. Very poor, it is stage 2. Severe, it is stage 3, and severe plus, it is stage 4. Okay. So what all things we'll be doing? I already mentioned it, like we'll be doing many things to rectify all these things. So what all things we'll be doing in this stage 1? Stage 1 means a moderate to poor AQI. Okay. So here the number will be 200, 201 to 300. 201 to 300. That will be the AQI measure here. So if the AQI is between 201 to 300, what they will be doing? Mechanized sweeping of roads, sprinkling water to suppress dust, enhanced use of anti-smoke guns will be there, enforcing stricter pollution under control norms of vehicles. So these are the things which will be implemented if the air quality is between 201 to 300. So that is a stage 1. Okay. From here we'll move on to stage 2. Stage 2 means very poor. From moderate to poor, we are actually moving to very poor. Okay, so here it is 301 to 400. The AQI is between 301 to 400. What we'll be doing? Banning the use of diesel generators, will be increasing the public transport availability so that less vehicles are only on the road. Vehicle pollution, mostly we are not into electric vehicles, mostly we are using other fuel vehicles only. So that will be there. Shutting down brick kilns and stone crushes, all these things will be there. So that is stage 2. Stage 2 means 301 to 400. So next one is stage 3 is 401 to 450. Stage 3 is 401 to 450. Stage 3 is 401 to 450. If this is the case, means it is severe. Severe AQI is happening, AQI is there, and will be imposing restrictions on the construction activities, banning industrial operations in certain sectors, and stopping stone crushing and hot mix plants. So these are the things which will be doing if the stage 3 levels are there. Okay. Finally, stage 4. Stage 4 means severe plus AQI. It is above 450. AQI is moving above 450. Moving above 450 means it is severe plus AQI. So there will be introducing something like odd even vehicle schemes. Regarding Delhi and all, Delhi has already implemented this long back. So shutting down schools will be there, enforcing heavy restriction on private vehicles. Make sure that people are not much moving out, so that this AQI is directly linked to the health also. The AQI levels are very high means it is better not to go out in the area. Sometimes the mask restrictions will also be there. You have to wear N95, that kind of mask is also there. So like that, the government or maybe the authorities can come up with more restrictions regarding this. Okay.
Sufferers and awarded. This topic talks about the Nobel Peace Prize awarded to an institution that is fighting for nuclear disarmament, right? So in this we'll understand about the nuclear disarmament and the various treaties that have the mandate to destroy the nuclear weapons from the world. For example, NPT, CTBT, etc. So we'll discuss all these treaties and the concept of nuclear disarmament. This is important for both prelims as well as means, right? Important for both prelims as well as means, and in means we have GS2 paper. In GS2 we have a subtopic in the name, global groupings and agreements involving India or affecting India's interests. So we'll see which are these global groupings or for that matter agreements. See, a previous question asked in the year 2018, consider the following countries, 5 countries, which among the countries given above nuclear weapon states as recognized by the Treaty of NPT. Once you go through this topic, you will be in a position to attempt this question. So once we are done with this topic, right, the third topic, please come back to this question and try to attempt the question. I'm pretty sure you will be in a position to get it right, this question, right? So let's start with the context. You know that America dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan, which cities Hiroshima and Nagasaki in the year 1945. Millions of people got killed because of these, horrific nuclear bombs. In that nuclear attack, few people survived. Among these few people who survived, 2 people, not required to remember the names, they found an organization. These 2 people found an organization. Now, this organization was fighting for nuclear disarmament, which means they try to spread awareness among the world that it is high time that we should completely eradicate nuclear weapons, which means there should be no nuclear weapons in any country, in any part of the world. No nuclear weapons at all. And finally, their efforts, they were fighting for almost how many years? 79 years. Finally, their efforts bore fruits. Why? Because this year they were awarded, their institution was awarded Nobel Peace Prize. Now, this, prize is very, very important to understand from the geopolitical context. And what is that? That, see, North Korea is threatening South Korea, USA, of launching nuclear attack, or let's say in Japan. Russia is threatening Ukraine of using nuclear weapon, or the Western countries. Iran is threatening using nuclear weapons against Israel, or for that matter Saudi Arabia. At times Pakistan threats India of using nuclear weapons. Given the disastrous consequence of nuclear weapons, it is high time that we discuss of nuclear disarmament, of completely destroying the nuclear weapons in the world. I hope you understood the context. See, Nihon Hidankyo, this is the name of the organization that received Nobel Peace Prize in the year 2024. Why? Because they are fighting that there should be no nuclear weapons in the world. Now, first and foremost, what is this nuclear disarmament movement? What exactly is this movement? This movement, it aims at elimination of nuclear weapons to prevent their catastrophic effects, to completely eliminate nuclear weapons, to completely destroy nuclear weapons. This is the purpose of nuclear disarmament movement, right? Now, see, post World War II, that is after 1945, when actually the dropping of nuclear bombs brought an end to the Second World War. However, post the end of Second World War, that is 1945, there were no major talks with respect to nuclear weapons. However, during the Cold War, 1945 to 1991, few of the countries had nuclear weapons. Given the disastrous impact of nuclear weapons, many countries started fighting against possessing nuclear weapons, which means many countries said that there should be no nuclear weapons. Anti-nuclear protests. Anti-nuclear, which means no one should have nuclear weapons. Advanced arms control agreements, but nuclear weapons remain a geopolitical threat today. The fact of the matter is, we have biological weapon, chemical weapon. The world has tried, has tried its best to bring in certain agreements, certain treaties to reduce the use of these weapons. However, because of lack of agreement, because of lack of global consensus, these agreements or these treaties for that matter are not coming into effect, are not being practiced. We'll discuss which are these treaties. And the fact of the matter is, nuclear weapons today is a major threat. Russia is warning Ukraine. North Korea is warning South Korea, USA and Japan. Iran is warning Israel, or for that matter, Iran is warning Saudi Arabia. Pakistan is warning India. Now let's try to understand the geopolitical. What is geo? Geography plus politics. Geography are the countries and their political agendas. So what are the impact of nuclear weapons? First, deterrence and powers. See, deterrence. What do you mean by deterrence? For example, China had nuclear weapons. We lost a war against China in the year 1962. We are not as powerful as China. So what we did is we built nuclear weapons. We developed nuclear weapons. In case China attacks us, we can have or we can use nuclear weapons, which means it served as a deterrence, which means China before attacking India would think, okay, India also has nuclear weapons, so we cannot go full throttle with full force against India. It was a deterrence. India developed nuclear weapons. Pakistan became worried, anxious, so Pakistan also developed nuclear weapons. Now Pakistan knows that in case India attacks Pakistan, Pakistan might use nuclear weapons. So India would refrain from waging a war against Pakistan. This is deterrence. One. Second is power. Now, in order to show power, a country's power, countries use or possess nuclear weapons. For example, Iran. Iran, to show the West Asian countries, especially Saudi Arabia and Israel, that they are a powerful country, they are developing nuclear weapons. So, for countries like US, Russia, China, India, Pakistan, Israel and North Korea, nuclear weapon is a very, very important element in their country's national security strategy. It's a part of these countries' strategy to have nuclear weapon. One. Second, ongoing conflicts, Russia against Ukraine, Iran against Israel, and North Korea against, let's say, South Korea and USA. This is actually affecting the global stability. It is actually making the world unstable because of such, ongoing wars in the countries. The Israel Hamas, then we have Lebanon, Iran, Russia, Ukraine, India, Pakistan, India, China, North Korea, South Korea, North Korea, Japan. It's making the world unstable. Nuclear alliances. So what is this nuclear alliance? NATO's nuclear shaping policy. See, post the end of 1945, we had two factions, NATO. NATO is North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It is a group of the Western countries. It is led by USA. What USA says is to the Western countries, you be a part of this NATO group. If any country attacks you, all the countries being part of NATO will attack your enemy. Which means, let's say for example, tomorrow India is not a member of NATO. India becomes a member of NATO. And China attacks India. Which means now all the countries, almost 40 countries in NATO will attack China. Which means this NATO says that the non-nuclear weapon states, like let's say for example France, right? Let's say Turkey, right? Or let's say Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, Canada. These are non-nuclear weapon states. This nuclear alliance NATO policy allows non-nuclear weapon state, that is Canada, or let's say South Korea. It allows South Korea to deploy nuclear weapons in their country. This NATO policy. If you are a part of NATO and you have threat from some country, you can keep nuclear weapons in your country. This is what NATO says. Strategic dilemmas. The fact of the matter is, having nuclear weapons will give you security, yes, but it also leads to escalation. For example, during the 1999 Kargil war, both the countries had nuclear weapons. Both the countries were, secured enough. Why? Because they had nuclear weapons. But still, post the Kargil war, Pakistan threatened India of using nuclear weapons. Then India also threatened Pakistan. Pakistan said that if India attacks us, we'll use nuclear weapons against India. India said that, okay, if you attack with us or attack us with nuclear weapons, The moment we counter-attack you, we'll completely wipe out the map of Pakistan from the world map. We'll completely destroy Pakistan. It led to escalation. This is a problem. This is the geopolitical implication of nuclear weapons. I hope you understood. Now, let us discuss this NPT treaty. What is NPT? Non-Proliferation Nuclear Weapons. Non-Proliferation Treaty. NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty. Simple. In the context of nuclear weapons, knowing this treaty becomes extremely important. This was established in the year 1970 with 191 state parties, which means there were 191 countries. What are key pillars? Which means there should be non-proliferation. Limits nuclear weapon development to 5 recognized states, which means as per the NPT treaty, as per this treaty, only 5 countries can possess nuclear weapons. Which are these countries? US, Russia, UK, then we have China and France. Which means only these 5 countries can have nuclear weapons, no other country can have nuclear weapons. Don't you think it is discriminatory? Why is it that these 5 countries are allowed to have nuclear weapons and the other countries are not allowed to have nuclear weapons? That's the reason India said that we will not join NPT. This is discriminatory. You're allowing China to have nuclear weapons, you're not allowing us to have nuclear weapons. This is foolish. So we won't join NPT. Requires nuclear armed states to work towards disarmament, which means the countries who have nuclear weapons, it pushes these countries to work towards disarmament. Peaceful use of nuclear energy allows civilian nuclear energy, right? Which means as per this treaty, you can use, for example, uranium. You can use uranium. Now, uranium is an ingredient to use or make nuclear weapons, which means you can use the ingredients for civilian purpose, that is to make nuclear energy, not for making weapons. What are the challenges? Countries like India, Pakistan, Israel, North Korea said that we won't join NPT. Why? Because it is discriminatory. Israel has a threat from Iran. We have a threat from China. Pakistan has a threat from India. North Korea has a threat from USA. So these countries said we won't join NPT. These countries say that none of the countries should have nuclear weapons. Then we'll destroy our nuclear weapons. They are right. Which means there's a problem with NPT. I hope you understood NPT. Next is TPN, that is Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. This was adopted in 17, entered into force in 2021. Which means this treaty, it prohibits completely development, testing, stockpiling, transfer and use of nuclear weapons. Which means it does not, allow the usage of any kind of, let's say for example, you cannot develop, you cannot use, you cannot store, you simply cannot make nuclear weapons. Now, none of the nuclear armed states have signed, which means the 5 countries, or for that matter, India, North Korea, Pakistan, they have not signed this treaty. I hope you understood what is this treaty, right? Now, the previous treaty, NPT, allows 5 countries to have nuclear weapons. But here, it says that no country should have. And that's the reason the nuclear powered countries, they have not signed this treaty at all. Then we have CTPT, that is Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. It was framed in the year 1996, bans all nuclear explosions for any purpose. Even if you are exploding nuclear weapon for peaceful purpose, like the way India did in Operation 1974 and 1998. Operation Smiling Buddha 1974 and Operation Pokhran in the year 1998. We exploded nuclear weapons for peaceful purpose, just to show that we are a nuclear powered country, no one should mess with our country. This treaty says that you cannot even do it for peaceful purpose. Global moratorium, it is not yet in force, it is yet to be implemented. 185 countries have signed it, right? Now, what's the difference between signatory and ratifying? Signatory, yes, we understand the importance and we understand the objectives of your treaty. But you don't ratify. When you ratify, you have to implement the provisions. Signing, yes, we agree with your principles. But when you ratify it, you have to implement it. India, Israel are the countries who are not happy with implementing the principles. Why? Because if we, let's say, destroy the nuclear weapons we have, China might threaten us, Pakistan might threaten us. So it would be foolish if India destroys her nuclear weapons. The point is, every country should destroy nuclear weapons for the peace of the entire world. I hope you understood about three. Fourth is the fissile material cutoff treaty. The purpose is aims to ban the production of fissile material, that is plutonium. See, we have uranium. When we enrich uranium, it becomes plutonium, and this plutonium is used for nuclear weapons. It bans the production of plutonium. Again, because of the disagreement between countries, this treaty is also not in force, right? So it is seen as a crucial step to freeze the production of nuclear materials. Production of nuclear materials like uranium and plutonium. Uranium, you can use it. Why? To make or produce nuclear energy. But plutonium, no.
That is 5I supports Canada in spat with India on Nijjar. So here as well, I'll actually tell you what we'll be discussing here. We'll be discussing about this organization of 5I Alliance, which is important as a part of international organizations. And also, this is important for both your prelims as well as mains examination. Under prelims, it's important for current events of national and international importance. And also under GS paper, this is under GS paper 2 IR, right, where international organizations are very important, and any kind of agreements or any kind of treaties that are actually signed there, what is the impact of that with respect to that of India, whether India is a signatory, whether India is a founding member or not, all this becomes very, very important. Now let us move quickly and understand. Yeah. There has been a previous year question in the year 2018 in the prelims examination with respect to Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture. So these kind of organizations become very, very important, and whether any kind of decisions taken by this organization is binding on the member countries or not, all these becomes very important. Okay, so these kind of organizations that are in news becomes important for both your prelims as well as mains. Now let us understand what is the article talking about. Canada's partners in the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance. So first of all, this is an intelligence agency. Five Eye Alliance is an intelligence agency. There are membership of 5 countries. That's why it is called the Five Eye Alliance. What are they? One is actually US, next is actually Canada, next one is UK, next one is Australia, followed by New Zealand. So these are the 5 Eyes. Okay, so these are the intelligence alliance. So Canada's partners of the Five Eye Alliance, that is the US, the UK, as well as Australia, have backed Ottawa's investigation, that is Canada's capital investigation about an alleged link between the Indian government and the killing of a pro-Khalistan separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. So let me tell you, see, this is very complex to understand. Let me tell you the backdrop. Okay, what happened is that there was a diplomatic standoff between India and Canada. What to say, a tussle, a misunderstanding, because the ambassadors of Canada were sent away from here, ambassadors of India were sent back from Canada. So there was a tussle with respect to that of the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Okay, so who is this person, Hardeep Singh Nijjar? So he is a Khalistan separatist. Okay, Khalistan separatist. Now you might ask me, what is this Khalistan? Okay, so Khalistan is nothing but what happened is the Sikh community, that is SIKH, the Sikh community actually wanted to establish a sovereign land for them, okay, in India or in this region that actually constitutes the current day Punjab, certain areas of Himachal Pradesh, Haryana, Rajasthan, etc. This sovereign land was supposed to be called as Khalistan. So there was huge protest over here pre-independence as well, okay, and during after independence it actually gained more traction and it became more intense, and finally it was silenced by the Indian government by Operation Blue Star in 1984 as well as Operation Black Thunder 1986. Okay, so they wanted a separate region for themselves in the western part of India. So that was called as the Khalistan movement. However, it is actually suppressed in India. What happens? Sikh community, more in population, they are actually in countries like US, Canada, etc. Right? So from Canada, what happens is majority of Sikh population actually had an uprising, and there was a recent killing of a Khalistan separatist, that is Hardeep Singh Nijjar, where Canada has actually alleged, or it has actually blamed India's involvement in his killing. So that is what is the news talking about. So what happens here, the investigation is actually started by this Five Eyes intelligence agency, where they are trying to find out whether India's involvement was there or not. So now let us quickly understand what it is. So Hardeep Singh Nijjar he was a Khalistan separatist. He was shot and killed in Canada's British Columbia in 2023. So Canadian Prime Minister Mr. Justin Trudeau, he alleged India's involvement in his killing, leading to a diplomatic dispute between India and Canada. And in September 2023, Canada's charge about India's involvement was backed by this particular intelligence agency, that is Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance. Now moving forward, let us see what is this Five Eye Alliance. It is a collaborative intelligence sharing framework, okay. So this constitutes 5 English speaking nations. As I told you, how to remember: 2 countries from the west, that is US as well as Canada; 2 countries from the east, that is Australia plus New Zealand; and then you have UK. So this was the intelligence sharing composition, okay. So it has US, UK, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. And what was the objective is to enhance the cooperation in signal intelligence, okay. So signals intelligence, this is nothing but it is deciphering the electronic communications, that is tracing the calls as well as tracing the emails and any other kind of electronic data that would have been involved in the assassination. So this is what it is. It was established after World War II, because USSR was actually rising in power, okay. So that is why what happened is that there was the UK USA agreement, that is the UK US agreement, that was signed in 1946 in order to suppress the rising power of USSR, okay. And that agreement actually established this particular Five Eyes Alliance. So this is what it is. Now moving forward, that is what I told you, the UK US Agreement of 1946 is an agreement of cooperation between UK and US after World War II. The surveillance programs by the Five Eyes include PRISM, Tempora, Muscular, etc. Sometimes you can be asked, questions on this as well. Like for example, Echelon recently, were mentioned in the news, is relevant to which of the following organizations? Okay, it can be asked, okay. Now the intelligence sharing agreements has actually expanded beyond the Five Eyes, okay, to 9 Eyes as well as 14 Eyes. How do you remember 9 Eyes? Apart from the English speaking countries, that is 2 towards the west, 2 towards the east, 1 UK in between, you had the Five Eyes Alliance plus 4. 4 actually includes DFN square. This is nothing but Denmark, France, Netherlands as well as Norway. And also 9 plus you have few more countries that actually become the 14 Eyes, okay, where you have Germany, Belgium, then we have Italy, Spain, Sweden, etc. So these are some things that you need to memorize, okay. Whether India is a part of Five Eye Alliance or not, if the question comes, then you need to know what should be the answer. It is not a part of it. Now about the Five Eye Alliance, you can actually see these are the countries. Added with these 4 becomes 9 Eyes, and added with these countries, it actually becomes the 14 Eyes, okay. Now moving forward, it's even more important to know what are the premier intelligence agencies across the world. Specifically for India, it is actually RAW, right? Research and Analysis Wing. So similarly for other countries, what it is? Let us see. So with respect to India, it is Research and Analysis Wing. Then you have United States Central Intelligence Agency. United Kingdom is Military Intelligence Section 6, that is MI6. Then Russia has Federal Security Services. Israel has an intelligence unit called Mossad. And similarly, Federal Intelligence Service, this is actually Germany. Then Ministry of State Security, China. Inter-Services Intelligence, that is by Pakistan. You have ASIO by Australia and CSIS by Canada, as well as SIS by New Zealand, that is the New Zealand Security Intelligence Service.
On the exception to marital rape. Now, first of all, as I said, we need to know the legal status. This topic becomes important for us from different perspectives. If you look at GS paper 1, GS paper 1 mentions about role of women. So gender related issues, women related issues are multiple times asked in GS paper 1. Then there can be question in GS paper 2 also, because GS paper 2 mentions about mechanisms, laws, institutions or bodies that exist in India to protect vulnerable sections. And when we talk about vulnerable sections, women are certainly part of it. Also, there can be a question related to marital rape in your GS4 ethics paper, where you need to take an ethical stand with respect to this particular controversial issue. Okay, so I'm just trying to tell you that this topic is highly important. Now look at this previous year question asked in 2019. What are the continued challenges for women in India against time and space? So they are asking about what all challenges, what are all issues women face with respect to time and space. So they are saying in ancient time, medieval time, modern time, wherever, if you go to any time period, what kind of issues they are facing. And in space, that means at different localities, at different regions also, what kind of issues they face. So such a broad question has been asked earlier. So when it comes to marital rape, this can be one of the subtopic also for your entire women related issues, or even it can be a separate topic for you to understand. Okay, now let's start with the context. What is the exact news? Now recently Supreme Court has said that we are going to hear some petitions which are challenging exception 2 to section 375 of Indian Penal Code. Now you don't need to worry about these technical terminologies. Just understand one thing, that in India, marital rape is not considered as a crime. Now first of all, what is marital rape? So if you know, simply when you understand the idea of rape, rape is nothing but sexual intercourse done without the consent of other person. You have not taken the consent. So if you have seen that movie called Pink by Amitabh Bachchan, there is a dialogue which says no means no. The dialogue is trying to say that if the woman is not giving you the consent for the sexual intercourse, in that case the other person has no right to go ahead with it. So if you are going ahead with that act, then it is called rape. Now what happens is that in case of a married woman, the situation differs. What happens is that usually it is expected that if two people are married, they will have some kind of sexual intercourse. And the husband considers or assumes that I don't need any kind of consent from this woman. I already have the consent which I got in the form of the marriage. So they will go for such sexual intercourse without the consent. So even if she is saying no, the person will still go ahead with it. So we are saying this is nothing but rape, and this can be called as marital rape. So rape done by your spouse or your husband is called as marital rape. Now this is also a kind of sexual violence. See, the person does not want to go through that process and you are forcefully doing it. That means it is some kind of a crime. But the problem is, in Indian laws, if you look at Indian Penal Code, section 375, which defines rape, it doesn't say that marital rape can be considered like a normal rape or other rape, and that's why it is not punishable as such. Now, if we go back in the history to check how this phenomena became so much clear for us that marital rape is considered as a very normal thing. So the history shows us that the genesis lies in the British Raj. If you look at Britain specifically between 17th to 19th century, in this time period, the Britain came up with some codification, some laws, and this English law specifically had a doctrine called doctrine of coverture. This doctrine of coverture says that when two persons are getting married, specifically a woman is getting married to a person, then that woman is giving up everything she has to the husband, even her identity. So from now onwards, once she is getting married, after that, she will not have any sexual intercourse against her consent. That is also considered as a normal thing because she has given all her rights to the husband. This is the principle or the doctrine of coverture. Now, this was brought in Britain, and because India was under British Raj, we saw that the same law came into picture in Indian laws also. But there is an interesting story. In the year 1991, Britain criminalized marital rape. That means Britain said that earlier we did not consider this marital rape as a crime, but now we are considering it as a crime and we will punish anyone who is going ahead with such marital rape. They did this in the year 1991. But if you look at India, who has got inspired or who has adopted this law has not even criminalized it till now. So if you look at Indian laws, specifically Indian Penal Code, now the name of Indian Penal Code has been changed. We have reformed the system. Now we call it BNS. Instead of IPC, we call it BNS. Bharatiya Nyay Sanhita. I'm sorry, it's S. Bharatiya Nyay Sanhita. So if you look at what has been specifically mentioned in the Indian Penal Code or Bharatiya Nyay Sanhita, it says that sexual intercourse by a man with his wife, if she is over the age of 18, is not considered rape. That means they are not ready to accept marital rape as a crime. That means if a person is going ahead with sexual intercourse against the consent, still it is considered normal. Still it is not considered as crime by our laws, specifically section 375 of IPC or section 63 of Bharatiya Nyay Sanhita. Clear? Now, if we talk about why are we talking about criminalizing it? Why are we saying that marital rape should also be considered as a crime just like any other rape? One of the reasons is the violation of human rights, or specifically to say the fundamental rights given by our constitution to us. So if you look at Article 14 of Indian Constitution, Article 14 clearly says that there is equality before the law and equal protection of law. That means everyone, every citizen of India is equal. And Article 15 says that you cannot discriminate people on the basis of sex. Now what is happening? If that person goes ahead with the sexual intercourse with her without the consent, that is not considered as rape. That means what is happening? We are not giving equal status to these two women. We are discriminating on the basis of sex. So this completely goes against Article 14 and Article 15. Okay. Then we have some Supreme Court and High Court judgments which also specifically talk about marital rape, how we can criminalize it. For example, we have this case called Suchita Srivastav versus Chandigarh administration. In this case, Supreme Court said that the women's bodily autonomy is very important. If a woman does not have control or authority over her own body, then how can you say that the person is free? So they talked about Article 21 of the Constitution. Article 21 talks about personal liberty, right to life. So when you talk about right to life and personal liberty, this particular marital rape completely violates it because it is her own body. She will decide whether she will go ahead with a particular act or she will not. So this article particularly gets violated. Then we have this case Puttaswamy versus Union of India. In this case also similar judgment was given. So more or less I'm trying to tell you that even Supreme Court has taken some stance wherein they feel that it needs to be criminalized. It is important for the fundamental rights. Then moving ahead, if we talk about Delhi High Court's judgment in the year 2022. Now the problem is that Supreme Court comes up with the judgment, but the lawmaking is something which is done by the parliament and not the judiciary. Now what happened in the year 2022? Delhi High Court came up with a split verdict. In this verdict, why I'm calling it a split verdict? Split means there were two judges. One judge said something yes, other judge said no. So this is called split judgment. So there is no concrete judgment as such. What happened? One judge said that marital rape is an unconstitutional thing. It goes completely against the constitution. It goes completely against the fundamental rights. Whereas the other judge said that no, we cannot call it unconstitutional as such. Why? He too had one argument to give. He said that in India, marriage is considered to be a sacrament thing, a very important thing. And when a person gets married, especially if you look at Indian culture or Indian people, they have a mindset or they have a thought process which clearly says that when you are married to someone, then you are not two different people, you are one unit altogether. And here you have already given that consent for sexual intercourse. So that's why the issue becomes very much complex. There is no clear cut clarity on the judiciary side whether to know whether they are ready to criminalize it or not. Anyway, they cannot criminalize it. It is the job of parliament to come up with a specific law. Okay. Now, moving further. If we look at the data given by National Family Health Survey 5 of year 2019 to 2021. Now, this is a very important data, comes from the government sites. Now, this data clearly mentions that if you look at Indian women specifically, 1/3 of Indian married women in India, they face some kind of physical violence or sexual violence. Now this data is clearly saying that it is very common to see some kind of physical or sexual violence in India. Why this happens? Because our society is very much patriarchal. In our society, women's rights are not completely accepted. The social structure is made in such a way, the social rules are made in such a way that they don't accept complete equality. Just to give you an example, if you go to home, if you look at who is cooking your food, who is making your meal, you will say your mother or your sister. So the job of cooking has been assigned to women anyway. So this is just one example. I'm trying to say that it is very common to see patriarchy getting manifested, or the patriarchy which exists that gets replicated in the form of some kind of violence. So here this violence shows that somewhere, so if India has signed any convention, it is our responsibility that we modify our laws, we reform our laws on the same lines. Now, in case of this, here we see one particular convention. Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. In short, it is also called as CEDAW. Now, this is an international convention signed by many countries, including India. India has also signed it. And now it is our responsibility that we have our legal standards similar to this law. This particular convention also says that we need to carry out some legal reforms through which we protect women from all kinds of vulnerabilities, from all kinds of violence. And when you say all kinds of violence, then the sexual violence is one of it, one specific part of it. So all of these arguments, these are specifically made to show you that why we need to criminalize marital rape. Criminalize means making it a crime under your laws, so that in case any person is going ahead with it, he will be penalized, he will be taken to jail or given some kind of penalty. Okay. Now, till now we have just talked about why do we need to go ahead with marital rape. Now I'll talk about why we should not go ahead with it. there are some people, some scholars who will argue against this criminalization, and they have some valid points to make. For example, first thing they say that it will destabilize the marriage. Now, specifically, Government of India is also taking similar kind of stance wherein they are saying we should not criminalize it. Why? Because when you're talking about marriage, marriage is something which is considered as sacrament or something that is very pure, because the entire society came together and observed this marriage. They gave their blessing. Now, this marriage as an institution is existing since years. It's not like nowadays marriages are taking place. They're taking place since ancient times. So, in India specifically, the Indian culture gives very much importance to marriage. Now, when you start considering marital rape as a crime, what will happen? A woman is going to court against her husband. What will happen? The private affair now will reach to Supreme Court, and what will happen is that this will create some problems with respect to some false cases also. Now, this is one of the argument that if a woman goes to court and says that there has been some marital rape and I want that my husband should be jailed. Now, who knows whether it was a marital rape or there was some consent taken? Because whatever happened, that was completely a private affair. Nobody was witnessing, and you will not have any kind of evidence as such. Can court actually go into the evidence and check it? No, you cannot check it. So there is problem of proof and evidences also, and this will destabilize the marriage. If you allow this kind of a thing, marital rape is criminalized, then the institution of marriage, whether it will survive or not, people will not have any faith in the marriage as an institution. That's why these people are saying we should not criminalize it. We said that in case of India, there is some cultural difference. For example, if you look at other cultures, they will consider marriage as a contract. It's a contract which has been signed by two people. Whereas in case of India, it is not a contract. It is something very pure. It is very sacrament. It has been done with many rituals. So it has some element of religion also, culture also, and society also. So they are saying you should not interfere in this social institution directly. Then there is angle of excessive legal interference. Excessive means, see, when you go to court, the court gets into investigation, and to collect proof and evidences, they will ask you questions. They will go deeper into that. But does court have the authority to go into your private matters and private affairs? Because these family issues, can these be actually solved by the court? And most importantly, why should we allow court to go into these excessive details? So this is excessive legal interference. Law is interfering in your personal private life. This is a concerning thing. And at last, the final argument made is that the society is not ready. Even if government, let's say parliament, comes up with a law which says that marital rape is now a crime, but do you think society will accept it? And if society doesn't accept any particular law, what is the use of that law? For example, we have a law to prohibit, let's say, dowry. We have a law, but people are taking dowry. Nothing is happening because society accepts dowry. We have Prevention of Corruption Act, but still corruption is going on because society accepts it. So society's acceptance matters. If society accepts marital rape as a normal thing, you can't do anything. And most importantly, if you bring a law against the will of society, against the desires of society, then there is a chance that people may show some kind of resistance. They may become angry towards maybe Supreme Court, maybe government, anyone. They may come up with some kind of protest against the government. So all of these things are possible. That's why they are saying we should not go ahead with criminalization of marital rape. Now moving further, If you look at some of the committees that are set up, or what is exactly happening throughout the world, it's not like India is the only country who is discussing whether we should criminalize marital rape. It's not just India. You look at more than 100 countries who have already criminalized it, or the discussion is still going on in other countries to criminalize it. So India is one of them. And in the 21st century, we are living in the modern age. We expect that the dignity of women is respected. We expect that violence towards women should be reduced to zero. That's why we are saying even India should go ahead with it. Now, there was a committee called Justice Verma Committee. This committee was set up after this 2012 Delhi gang rape. So, you must have heard about Nirbhaya case. This is the same case. After Nirbhaya case, Justice Verma Committee came up with its report. One of the recommendations this committee gave was that we should go ahead with criminalization of marital rape. So, this report also says we should go ahead with criminalization. So as a way forward, if you are asking me what should we actually do as a country, as a government body or anything, first thing, we need some legislative reform. We need to make changes in the laws. So for example, our IPC or BNS, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, we need to make changes in that section, and obviously that can be done by our parliament. Secondly, we also need to ensure that in case there are some kind of false allegations, false cases, then there should be some protection given to husbands also if some kind of false case has been registered against them. So you should have a law which is very strong, which acts against the false actions also, and which gives protection to the genuine cases also and takes these genuine cases seriously. Okay. Now, apart from that, just by bringing law, nothing will happen. We need some change in the society. First of all, you need to change the attitude of society. If the society has attitude of patriarchy, you cannot do anything. So you need change in the mindset. That will come with education, that will come with awareness. And first of all, we need to focus on this aspect that there are some stereotypes, some prejudices in the minds of people which go completely against the dignity of women. We have a notion that we assume that women are not that capable and men are capable. Unless this stereotype is removed, unless these cultural norms are removed, you cannot expect that these laws will do some justice to the society. So we need to do all of this. Okay. So that's it about this article related to marital rape.